What is a man? A miserable little pile of secrets. But enough talk. How about you?
Say what you want about 2023 Konami, and you certainly can say a lot of bad things, but in the past they pumped out classic titles for legendary franchises like no tomorrow. If I had to pick one, and that's a tough call to make, my pick for the very top has to be Castlevania. Akumacho Dracula, for those who know, of course. Now, the series had a lot of games, spin-offs and remakes, but you easily can separate them in one of three categories. Spanning from 1986 all the way to 1997, this set the cornerstone for what it meant to play a Castlevania. It usually involves power striding through a maze like Trapsel Castle, whooping iconic monsters into submission, while some of the best music in video games makes the beautiful art come to life through limited graphics. Also a lot of dying, cause man, these games are not easy, and if you beat them as a child, you're indeed a pro gamer. Already you could feel the sparks of innovation with Castlevania 2 and how ahead of its time it was, even if much like Zelda 2, it had a lot of unrefined drawbacks. They even started to go portable on the Game Boy, with mixed results. I'd say my favorite here has to be Rondo of Blood / Dracula X. The vibrant colors and the transformed OST make it the most replayable in my book. As soon as the patron saint of indie development, Koji Igarashi and his team took over, things changed. Starting on the PS1 with a game you might have heard of, Symphony of the Night, only by many considered the pinnacle of the franchise. Focus was shifted from level-based design to a fully explorable castle or world in which you unlock new abilities and weapons, which drastically alter your traversal and combat options. This continues all the way to the Nintendo DS and the Order of Ecclesia, my personal favorite. The fighting nun, Shanoa, takes the fight to Dracul and friends in absence of the Belmont clan. The last true Igavania. I mean, Konami would never drive out such an accomplished game producer and make him start his own game series, would they?
Mr. Kojima?
Also, could they please re-release all these banger games on Switch and Steam? Thanks. Much like Sonic, say it with me, starting with Castlevania 64. I think they got the hang of it though. Limit of Innocence is something of a hidden gem, and Curse of Darkness is still fun. They tried a lot of different things, like an XBL multiplayer game where you play in a greatest hits castle using multiple heroes at once, or a Wii exclusive fighting game, designed by the Death Note artist?
Has he finally caught on to me? What question could it possibly be?
Are you gay?
What?
Are you gay?
Would Kira be gay? Would he? What kind of question is this? Calm down, Light. Calm down.
Yeah, that one is more fun to look at than play. Soon the higher-ups decided, like many Japanese businessmen at the time, their games should also sell like Call of Duty. So they hired a Western studio to make a game for them. Okay, this isn't a knock on these teams by anyway, it's just a common thing in this era. If you want to learn more, check out this What Happened video by Matt McMuscles. I'll link to it in the description. I'm just glad people showed them that Japanese-made games can still sell perfectly fine. Sure, nowadays with titles like Samus Returns and Metroid Dread in their catalog, I would 100% trust Mercury's team to develop a superb Castlevania. Back then the Spanish developer had things like American McGee and FPS Clive Barker's Jericho on their resume. No shade, but that is not something I would put my trust in for such a legacy-heavy franchise. Back then, the plan wasn't to develop another Metroidvania, but to catapult the game into the genre of the modern third-person action game. If we take a look at the sales numbers, it certainly was a worthwhile undertaking. Lord of Shadows and its sequel are the franchise's biggest sellers, by a lot. Konami gave them Hideo Kojima as a special producer, but nothing about it feels like his style, so it's probably more to add a big household name. The team showed him some scenes of the game every month maybe, and he said, "Yeah, that looks cool." It certainly was its inspiration on the sleeve. The movement, timing, and the weight of the attacks scream God of War. It makes sense though. Kratos' Blades of Chaos do feel very whip-like. Some cite Shadow of the Colossus as another source, but I can maybe remember 3 times where you had to climb a big boss to stab something. That was so prevalent in this generation, I barely count it as anything. The minions of hell are acting up once again, and you get to take on the mantle of the legendary Belmont name as Gabriel. This entry is a reboot to the franchise, so there is no bluff you with Dracula. Instead of a lineage of monster hunters, Gabriel is a member of the Templar-like Holy Order on a quest to defeat the evil and resurrect his dead wife, Mary. Some people might disagree, but I quite enjoy Gabriel's character. He isn't a sarcastic hero like Netflix Trevor, always ready for the next quip.
Oh, hell. I'm sorry. I was trying to snatch the stave out of your hand. How's your finger?
Nor a plucky, overconfident hero like Richter. And certainly no brooding edgelord. Okay, he may be a bit brooding and sad, but cut him some slack. His wife died, and his religion, very true to life, takes no break to disappoint him. He's more the few of words professional doing his job kind of character. Something rare in modern writing. It actually feels refreshing when it comes up. His weapon of choice is a cross, but not any old symbol. This one has a triple function, as a relic, a metal whip, and a trusty stake for the occasional vampire. Probably my favorite version of the matter-of-factly named Vampire Killer. The game is very pretty and atmospheric. The beautifully crafted art style and varied locations hold up very well, especially on PC with 4K rendering and a rock-solid 60 FPS. I'm more than once marveled at the skyboxes and intricate architecture. Not limiting themselves to a castle and its surrounding areas was the right choice, to showcase the epic scope of Gabriel's quest. Don't worry, you still get plenty of Castlevania-like aesthetics nonetheless. Almost fairy tale-like, the game starts off from the main menu book, with a big booming narration, over the almost painting-like cutscene. Oh, and man, they didn't get any voice actor, oh no. They had award-winning actor Sir Patrick Stewart play the role of Gabriel's brother friend Sobek, who also doubles as the narrator. Most people know him as Captain Picard, but the man had a decade-long career in film and TV. Especially his numerous ventures in Shakespearean drama and Broadway productions come into play. Everything he narrates sounds like the most mysterious thing in the world.
The village is safe for now. The vampires have lost one of their commanders, Brawner, and news will travel back to the Dark Lord quickly. This is a blow, but it won't take long for them to regroup. Luckily, one of the villagers has revealed to us a secret path into the demon's castle. This will lead Gabriel into the sewers, and then up into the very jaws of death. The villagers called him God's Savior, and his weapon they called Vampire Killer. Ah, Gandolfi, how that would make you smile. As for me, once my business here is done, I shall follow my friend and aid him where I can.
Oh, Gabriel. I was trying to make pancakes, but I'm all out of eggs. If it's not too much trouble, could you go to the store and buy some for us? I promise, the pancakes you will receive will be delicious and righteous.
Very Witcher-like, or should I say very Helsing-like. A lone warrior rides into a small town just as the townsfolk is about to be overrun by gnarly werewolves. With your trusty chain whip in hand, it is time for your combat tutorial. Press the light attack button for far-reaching whip attacks that cover a big area, allowing you to hit multiple foes at once. It's kinda annoying that these attacks have little to no hit stun, but I get it. If they had, due to the nature of the whip, No monster could ever get close to you. Heavy attacks swing your chain to a specific enemy, and the combo ender usually can even hit bad guys out of the animation. There are launcher and stinger equivalents, but the better ones are usually in the upgrade tree, and enemies are aggressive about knocking you to the ground. Without later upgrades, big enemies are near uncomboable, so your best strategy is to just spam heavy hits against them. Strings that match heavy and light attacks are unlocked too late for my taste, relegating them to New Game Plus. You can also grab smaller enemies, or grab bigger ones to finish them off. Of course accompanied with QTEs, as was the style at the time. Please refer to the Double Buster on how to do it right. Bad guys and crates can get you some offensive items to use against the forces of evil. You know, franchise classics like holy water, daggers, fairies and demon summoning? You're no slouch defensively either. A nice dodge roll, block and parry and even an enemy step are more than enough to not get overwhelmed. Well, Gabriel puts a lot on stake to save the village, and in return asks to find the guardian of the lake. On foot it seems. A lot of foreshadowing in these early cutscenes. The game is built on 4 pillars: action combat, set pieces, surprisingly fun puzzles and platforming. Each one is inherently competent and only annoyed me in very minor ways as I played through the game. Speaking of these things, a magic horse appears to introduce set pieces to you. And yeah, it looks pretty good, doesn't overstay its welcome. Gabriel gets to look very cool. Anyways, we end up in a swamp, which displays the more open levels of the game. Open in a sense of there are 3 ways from each big combat arena. The one you came from, the way forward, and a more hidden path with a fallen knight, who usually have hints to a puzzle or even more important gems that after 5 are collected increase your max health or magic. And let me tell you, these knights are everywhere. In the vampire castle, right to the throne room, yeah, there's one. In the depths of hell, yeah sure, there's one who couldn't figure out the puzzle. I mean, the game just lets you skip puzzles you can't solve or gives you tips. And wow. Remember when in the new God of War the characters wouldn't shut up about puzzles and how to solve them if you wait for 10 seconds?
Ah, not quite right.
That was close. Try again.
Turns out, in a few instances you have a companion here, they do the same.
This mechanism whenever you need it. I think the mechanism needs more power.
Kinda shocked me that that was a thing way back when. On your way through the game, you acquire a lot of different upgrades that will either help you at fighting or transversing, sometimes even both. Like this hook grip for your cross whip, allowing you to Spider-Man across areas, or grab onto enemies like this troll boss, or get smaller guys to you. Platforming along with puzzling was the thing that positively surprised me the most. I rarely can get behind the slow climbing of the early F-Screeds or even the set-piece heavy Uncharted games. With the addition of the hook, I'm happy to report that in this, it's not only fast and snappy, but they even use the chain in some pretty interesting ways physics-wise. You have room puzzles with fairy boobs, you have slide puzzles, jumping puzzles, chess matches, light puzzles, and even moonface puzzles. I think that's not even half of it. Anyways, after the fairies we actually meet Pan, that tells us to go to the Lake of Oblivion and talk to our dead wife. Didn't mention the James Bond death trap or the huge golem buried under ice? The golem is everything I hate about these huge enemies in these games. It takes forever to climb it, you can fall down, it hits way too hard, and you bet your butt there are QTEs that you don't want to fail. Oh, and hitting the weak points takes multiple hits of course. Luckily, there won't be another golem that's even more annoying later on. Well, it certainly took me a few tries too many, but me and Cutscene Sobek took him down. Ghostwife and Sobek tell Gabriel about the legend of the Stone Mask and the Lords of Shadow, with whose power the Chosen One will not only save the world, but can also bring back the dead. Gabriel says that sounds like a deal, and because he doesn't ask any pesky follow-up questions, so even puts in a magic amulet that will help us store mana. There are 3 Lords of Shadow: the Master of the Lycanthropes, the Vampire Baroness Camilla, and the first of the Necromancers in the Land of the Dead. Plan is to take out the werewolves while Sobek scouts out Vampirevania, as not to warn them about our campaign. It was at precisely this point I realized just how absolutely huge this game was. Just look at how many chapters there are, and if you open up chapter 2, you can see how many levels can be in one. It took me more than 16 hours to beat, and I didn't finish the DLC. More on this at the end. And you can easily add more than double if you go completionist. I sincerely don't know if I should praise it for that, or say that they should use their time to flesh out 2/3 of the levels in total. Or improve the boss fights. Thinking this is a good time to stop going play by play and just mention things that have me thinking as I encountered them. The selection of enemies is pretty good. Yeah, you got your usual selection of werewolves, vampires and giant spiders, but you also got stuff like a mechanical spider with a brain tank, Grim Reapers, Baba Yaga, and a huge bone dragon. Castlevania runs on the belief that all religion and mythological creatures are real. You just gotta believe it. So if you want, you can go even crazier than showing Greek Pan. Which reminds me, he's more of a Celtic puck and Jewish golems. Let me fight Minotaurs together with Asuras and a Bagan. Let me bonk Yata Garasu with a Molnir, while Mermaid I'm watching, is what I'm saying. Speaking of weapons, man, I wish there was more than the whip. I guess you could count the Black Gauntlet. I mean, it's no Gilgamesh, but it has some moves. Just ended up barely using them if I didn't have to. The light magic that heals you upon hitting bad guys and the dark magic that make your hits more damaging and staggering are nice, but other than the visual effect and some super attacks, barely change the combat. Listen, I don't wanna DMC this, but I'm just saying an angel and a double weapon would have gone a long way. There are a couple of big enemies you can mount up to clear rooms and progress through the levels. I was impressed on how good that worked, and it didn't overstay its welcome either. The worst part of the game? Probably the whole part, with the flip-flapping, mind-reading, and talking barefoot maiden, Claudia, and her protector. They have you search a way too big area with respawning enemies for crystal shards. Oh, and the aforementioned second golem fight. Well, that problem solves itself, I would say. It is for sure the most boring answer, but the best part of the game is in fact Camilla's castle. Best combat, best atmosphere and music, best puzzles, and best platforming. It even has the best boss fight in the game. All that after I said I want more different things in Castlevania, but hey, good design is good design. And yeah, boss fights. I don't count the normal enemies that are buffed up, or the platforming buddies, so most of them are perfectly fine. Some of them have ads, gimmicks, and most of all QTEs. But dodging and spamming dark magic strong attack never fails you. It's disappointing that you can't really style on them. I mean, the biggest thing they can come up is switching between light and dark magic mid-combo to damage a boss. At the literal gates of the underworld. Alright guys, time for some spoilers for the final parts of the game, so if you don't want to hear that, you know what to do. After defeating 2 Lords of Shadow, you travel to Hell with the help of Barber. You defeat Pawn Angel form? Despite being a bit bland, I enjoyed the art direction. It's no over-designed realm of torture like Dante's Inferno, but the desolation of this afterlife really is captured immaculately. You could have, for sure, guessed by his increasingly dodgy narration.
The old god is dead. It has come to this at last. The blood of a god has opened the way. Good, Gabriel, very good.
But Sobek betrays you.
You have exceeded even my wildest expectations, killing and butchering your way to victory. There is a terrible darkness in you, my friend. Your burning desire to resurrect your darling Marie has blinded you to it.
I know. He was the necromancer, or death himself, all the time. He just used you to get all the pieces of the mask, and add insult to injury, made it so Gabriel, in real Konami fashion, killed Marie himself and completely erased that part from his mind. Delightfully devilish, but not as delightfully devilish as the Prince of Darkness, Lucifer Morningstar, double-crossing Sobek last minute and reveal that he used you both in fact. Yeah, it's a bit much, but it's stupid fun. That gets you into a final boss fight with Big Daddy 666. You both light up like Christmas trees at this point, so you can switch to the right magic at any time, and even heal if you get hit, cause wow, Lucy got hands. Don't you mess up any QTEs either. A bit too much rune sigil stuff for my liking, but beating Beelzebub's ass is a pretty good final. Well, we did it, Gabriel. We saved everyone's souls. Doesn't mean God's done trolling you. Turns out, all the mask does is let you see the world through God's eyes. So you can smooch your not dead wife, but she still has to go to heaven, while Gabriel's kinda just stays there alone or sad. The end. Or is it? 100 of years later, a hooded figure stalks an abandoned castle. Turns out, that figure is Sobek, and he needs Gabriel's, or no, Dracula's, help. Lucy's back at it again. After a short struggle, Sobek now, Sean Connery's looking ass, blasts you out of the window to reveal. Modern day? Now that's a sequel hook. Even if Knight's contracted it first. For real though, LOS 2 is a really strange game. Don't know if I ever cover it. I had a lot of fun with this. And if it weren't for the sheer length of the game and some troublesome parts, I was actually thinking of doing a speedrun. As far as reboots go, this was a really good attempt. And from what I've heard, this and the sequel would actually make a really nice remake. What do you say? There's a DLC? And it in Mirror of Fate, that nobody played, actually explain what's going on in the sequel? Oh, I mean the reason he's a Dracula is not stupid, right? Oh, I mean, couldn't a mask take away his humanity? No, that'd be silly. Yeah, but it's not like the DLC boss is stealth heavy with insta-kills. Oh, at least they never would make stealth a big part of 2.